We'd like to start by thanking the CFA Institute as well as all the judges today. It's a true honor to be presenting at this stage in the competition. However, in the presence of time, let's get started. We're initiating a hold recommendation and $100 price target for Kansas City Southern. A hold recommendation requires a delicate balance of positives and negatives. We'll give you 3 of each. As for the positives, Kansas City Southern has drastically improved their financial strength after a recent credit rating upgrade, decreasing the cost of debt and increasing the maturities. We also think Kansas City Southern is in a prime position to grow revenues exponentially over the coming years. Most of that revenue growth will take place in Mexico, where management has increased their revenue exposure to 46% in 2013. As for the negatives, we believe that management is a little overzealous in their optimistic outlook on revenue growth. And to be quite honest with you, we found most of this growth to already be priced into the market. Also, we felt Kansas City Southern has some severe risk and drags that we'll discuss later in our presentation. I'm now going to turn it over to Jacob to provide an analysis on the industry. Jacob?
Thanks, Jared. From the food we eat, the cars we drive, even gas at the pump, railroads play a key role in fulfilling our basic needs. They compete against trucks, pipelines, barges, and planes in the freight transportation business. There are 3 key drivers of demand. 1, international trade. 2, economic and industrial production. And 3, the price of oil. Take a gallon of fuel, and a train can haul a literal ton of freight 476 miles. That's 4 times farther than by truck. Moving on, we've identified 2 industry trends. 1, an increased demand to transport oil. U.S. oil production has skyrocketed since 2011, and this bodes very well for railroads. Number 2, a decreased demand for coal. This is due to U.S. power plants transitioning to natural gas as their source of fuel, and railroads have felt this lack of business. Finally, there are 7 railroads which dominate the industry in the U.S., the smallest of which is yours truly, Kansas City Southern. With that, I'll turn it to Derek, who will give us an overview of the company. Derek?
Thanks a lot, Jacob. Founded in 1887, Kansas City Southern was the first rail company to build track north to south as opposed to the more traditional east to west. With operations in the U.S., Mexico, and Panama, Kansas City Southern also holds 2 key concessions, the first of which grants them sole access to service rail transport between the United States and Mexico, and secondly, the sole provider of rail access at the port of Lázaro Cárdenas. Although they do have a very well-diversified revenue mix with 6 different divisions, they are going to be predominantly decided by what happens in Mexico. They need Mexico to do really well. We think they will. Over the last 8 years, the average manufacturing wage rate in China has been steadily increasing, so much to the point where it's actually now directly in line with the average manufacturing wage rate in Mexico. This will be a great incentive for companies to relocate their facilities in Mexico, which would be a great benefit taking advantage of the low-cost structure. Additionally, there's a recent energy reform which will be a revelation to the energy industry. This is going to allow for foreign direct investment between the government as well as other entities. Now, we do believe there will be 1 to 2 year delay before any material revenues impact Kansas City Southern. However, they will benefit in transporting the industrial goods needed to actually build up that infrastructure. On the right-hand side of this picture is Texas, with every silver speck representing a specific drill site. The left-hand side is Mexico. There's nothing there. With the foreign direct investment, this will spur drill sites everywhere. The natural gas is there, they just haven't been able to do it. However, you may be thinking, Kansas City Southern, they don't transport natural gas. They don't, but they do transport the frac sand, which is a key component needed to actually extract that. As you can see, as U.S. tonnage production has increased over the years, so has Kansas City Southern's revenue. We believe that scenario will directly correlate, if not even on a greater scale than what we've seen so far in the U.S. This picture depicts Kansas City Southern's rail line. As you can see, their rail line falls directly on many of the largest refineries in the United States, specifically in the south around the Port Arthur area. This will benefit their crude by rail. However, the caveat is, in 2015, the Keystone XL pipeline is expected to open up, which could take away from the need to actually shift crude by rail, as it would just be going through the pipeline. Furthermore, with the recent issues in the train derailments, as well as safety concerns with shipping crude by rail, we believe any legislation would materially adversely impact them, so it's something to certainly consider and be aware of. Next, their intermodal division, currently less than 3%. There's huge opportunity for growth. As I mentioned, at the Port of Lázaro Cárdenas having the sole concession, there's been a $900 million investment in a new AP Merck's crude terminal, which is going to increase capacity at the port, which should benefit Kansas City Southern. However, again, a caveat. There's been increased drug cartel issues at the port. It's gotten so severe, in fact, that the Mexican government has had to come in and take over the entire port in the interim. Finally, automobile. These 4 automobile manufacturers have recently or plan in the short term to open up new production facilities. This will increase capacity in the automobile area. However, we are skeptical of the demand. Specifically, out of these automobile companies, only one of them is even in the top 5 most demanded vehicles in the United States, and it's Honda, falling in all the way at the bottom 5th spot. Furthermore, we spoke to the National Automobile Dealership Association, who showed us research that suggests that American consumers are now pursuing American brand automobiles, as well as automobiles actually manufactured in the United States. So management's overly optimistic presumption on what is going to be needed to be shipped, we're very skeptical on. I'd now like to pass it back to Jared, who's going to talk about the financial analysis.
Thanks, Derek. We concluded there were 2 key financial aspects that impacted our valuation. First being capital spending. In 2013, Kansas City Southern's total CapEx was 25% of revenue. This level of continued capital spending will put pressure on management to continue to grow earnings in order to maintain their valuation. Next is operating ratio, which has improved on average 130 basis points annually since 2010. While we believe the increase in volumes as well as maintaining a disciplined cost structure will be the primary catalyst for future operating ratio improvement, we found 2 key technological advances that will improve efficiency. First is we contacted the manufacturer of Multi-Rail, a high-precision device designed to calculate the weight of rail cars as well as monitor their center of gravity. This improved efficiency comes with this equipment's ability to perform while the locomotives remain moving at up to 14 kilometers per hour. Next is the expanded use of the Automax rail car, which expands capacity to 20 automobiles per rail car from 12. I'm going to turn it over to Jacob now. I'm going to turn it over to Derek now, who's going to start our valuation discussion.
Thanks a lot. In our DCF model, the first thing we did was we modeled for an operating lease adjustment. This was done to progressively achieve a 50-50 split between capital and operating leases by 2017 based on management's guidance of wanting to move toward that direction. We then looked at some of the key revenue drivers, which we've mentioned throughout the presentation, as well as the cost savings approach and the improvement in the operating ratio. We then conducted a multi-stage DCF, first with a 4-year free cash flow forecast. To that, we added a stage 2 growth rate, progressively decreasing from 8% down to 3% over a 10-year period. Followed that up with a 2.5% terminal growth rate to achieve a DCF target price of $94.24. Jared?
Thanks. We also included 2 market multiple valuations, price to earnings and EV to EBITDA. After management recently revised downward guidance for 2014, we no longer deemed worthy Kansas City Southern of the historical premiums they traded at. We applied a 20% premium to both price to earnings and EV to EBITDA, derived primarily on the backs that we believe Kansas City Southern will grow slightly faster than their industry group. Next, we did sensitivity analysis on our market multiples valuation, producing a bear market scenario and bull market scenario by applying a plus and minus 2 times multiple to our base case. This gave us confidence in producing our final target price of $100 by equally weighting our discounted cash flow with our market multiple valuations. However, these weren't the only valuation methods we conducted. Some other notable valuation methods were the linear model and an autoregressive 1-period model, which both produced statistical significance at a 95% confidence level. Now, while we understand the increase in revenue will decrease the relevance of these models moving forward, we believe that as the revenue is delayed, that this will bring greater visibility to these model prices. I'm now going to turn it over to Jacob, who's going to discuss the risk to our valuation. Jacob?
Thanks, Jared. The main risks include a demand shift away from coal, currency exchange rate risk, and a loss of their Mexican concession. Actually, last month, Mexico's Congress passed a bill which would open their access to the railways. Essentially, this would revoke KSU's exclusive rights. If passed by Mexico's Senate next month in April, this could severely pressure their pricing power in Mexico. Furthermore, due to the highly cyclical nature of the firm, over the next business cycle contraction, the firm could sustain substantial losses. Although the firm does have a compelling growth story, these risks and headwinds act as a counterbalance to those risks. Derek, you want to touch on the Monte Carlo?
Thanks a lot, Jacob. We conducted a Monte Carlo simulation to test the stock price sensitivity by fluctuating key variables. As you can see, it supports our investment recommendation with 72% of the iterations actually falling in that hold recommendation. In conclusion, even with the excellent financial strength, the growth potential we've talked about in the Mexico story, we do believe it is counterbalanced by the delay in revenue, the growth that's already been priced in, as well as some of the risks and the drags. This is what led us to have a recommendation of a hold with a target price of $100. We'd now like to open it up for any questions.